Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Jim Olson, Assistant Executive Director of the NTCA. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Today's webinar is titled Maintenance and Problem Solving for Tile and Stone and is sponsored by Custom Building Products and Aquamix. Before we begin, I have to take care of a little business. Today's webinar will be muted. Please use the chat screen on your computer to ask questions. We will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. All of our webinars are archived and available to watch at any time after the webinars are presented. Please email me to request the archived version. I will put my email address on the chat screen and you can send me a request for the archived version if you'd like to watch it at a later date. If the audio on your computer is poor, call the number on your chat screen to listen on your phone. Today's presenter, Rod Sigman, is the Business Development Manager for Technical Installation and Care Products for Custom Building Products. Mr. Sigman has worked for the company for the past 25 years, most in support of the Aquamix brand of sealers and cleaners. He has various roles. He's included in all aspects of training and education for the national accounts in support of sales and technical departments. Mr. Sigman is also responsible for job site inspections, product specifications, product demonstrations, and product research and development. Mr. Sigman sits on the NTCA, the IICRC, and the MIA technical committees. He graduated the Ceramic Tile Consultant course in 1995 and passed the Certified Ceramic Tile Salesperson program in 2008. Mr. Sigman is also a frequent speaker at many national trade shows, including Coverings, Surfaces, Stone Expo, Total Solutions Plus. Welcome, Rod. I look forward to a great presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I appreciate your time. And we're going to talk, obviously, today about some maintenance and problem solving for tile and stone. And it's an issue that is near and dear to me and the industry, as there is a lot of question and a lot of debate and a lot of issues that arise from the lack of understanding and the lack of knowledge in this area. And that's obviously what we hope to cover a little bit today in the next hour or so. Let's go ahead and get started here. Now, what you see there is, a kind of could be a funny picture, but it actually is a real picture of a customer with a company in Southern California there that does high quality work. But that's how they determined, or she determined, whether or not she was going to pay him, as the two previous companies did not get paid because they did not pass the magnifying glass test. And as I say there, good or bad news, there are no tile or stone police out there. There are no standards for care and maintenance when it comes to the industry. And again, I've been in the industry now close to 28 years. And 28 years later, again, there are no standards. You can't open the TCNA handbook and find the information that we're going to cover today in there. You cannot find it in the ANSI standards. It's one of the last real areas in the industry that we simply don't have a way to judge performance levels and various attributes of products and how to solve and resolve a lot of these issues that go on today out there. So we see a lot of errors and a lot of problems that associate just simply again from the lack of knowledge, and customers are kind of left in a lot of cases to say, well, I guess this is how I'll judge it. How do I know if it's good? I guess, a customer pulls out a magnifying glass. And again, that's not really what we want to have happen, but we want to try to make sure we understand what products do, what they don't do, be able to relay to the customers what the expectations are of certain products, and hopefully avoid, instead of problem solve, we want to problem prevent a lot of these issues that go on out there. And it is quite easily done with the right information and knowledge and product. So what you see on the slide now, again, are a lot of issues that I run across, a lot of companies out there, and again, I'm sure most of you may have seen out there. And it just simply, again, goes back to simple knowledge of what works and what doesn't work. And on the picture on the left, you'll see damage from the wrong cleaner, the grout joint. Yes, the cleaner is keeping the grout a nice gray complementary color to the porcelain tile, but you can see the damage of the acidic cleaner that's being used on a regular basis on this commercial job. It is keeping it clean because it's literally dissolving and deteriorating the grout every time they use the cleaner. And for the customer that, again, they didn't realize that that's what would happen. So again, it's something important to know that, yes, these products, a lot of the common products that you might find in the janitorial or even the residential world out there that customers use and like to go to, they do work, but you have to ask yourself at what cost. Picture on the right side is Black Galaxy Granite. The piece on the left that actually really is Black Galaxy, that's how it should look. The 12 by 12 tile to the right of that there is what happens when a typical cleaner like Fabuloso is used, which is an acidic cleaner. It will turn the Black Galaxy, what I oftentimes refer to as Charcoal Galaxy. And in this case, the distributor was able to show the customer with about a 50 to 60 spray and wipe application. That's exactly what that cleaner will do with 50 or 60 spray and wipes to simulate a once-a-week cleaning. A lot of people don't realize that that's what can happen. Natural stone is a great material. It's fantastic, extremely durable. But even tile or stone, as I continue to show, and grout, can be affected by the wrong maintenance products, applications, and process. What you see here is a fast food chain on the East Coast there that were using a cleaner, enzymatic cleaner, and that used to be 100% solid epoxy grout. And that's what happens, and we saw this phenomenon, in years past there. It seems like it is hopefully winding down for several reasons. We have developed better grouts that are more chemical resistant, which is great. But ideally, we want to educate the customers about the right maintenance products. Any cleaner that can clean the grout in this type of fashion is not really a good choice when it's actually eating the grout. The way it keeps the grout clean is literally dissolving it one washing at a time. These are typically mop-on, rinse, and don't wipe type products, non-rinse products. And again, just not a good option. We see this a lot in fast food restaurants, in full-service restaurants, different applications out there where, again, these are mop-on and no rinse, which is what the customers like to use. Obviously, that's a great idea. Hey, you don't have to rinse this product. But if that's the result that every 6 months you're having to re-grout your installation, it's extremely costly. And there's a lot of finger pointing, a lot of liability that goes back and forth on that. And that's, again, just simple education by using the right product, process, and equipment can avoid this. You don't need those type of products to keep this type of floor and this installation clean. Another example here with a granite floor at a hotel. And I will highlight this for you here. What you can see here is in the light reflection, you'll see a lot of blistering around the image of the light. And that's literally what the floor looked like. It was literally raised blisters of the granite where the granite is literally spalling across this floor. From the type of acidic cleaner that they were using to mop the floor that they got from a local gem sand supply shop that really didn't understand natural stone. They did not understand the effects that a cleaner with a small amount of hydrofluoric acid would have on natural stone. And that's hydrofluoric acid, not hydrochloric. Hydrochloric acid at 30% is what we call muriatic acid. Hydrofluoric acid is much harsher, and it takes very little of that in any type of cleaner to literally spall and deteriorate granite. It will also ruin and etch porcelain tile as well. And so again, these type of products and the lack of understanding that, again, thinking that, well, natural stone or even porcelain tile are bulletproof, again, this is what we're here for today to talk about and to make sure that whatever your role is, whether you're a distributor, whether you're a stone restoration person, whether you're a manufacturer's representative or a dealer, an architect, whatever your role is out there in the industry, is really to make sure that our customers understand that these are beautiful installations and they should last decades and really a lifetime if properly installed and properly maintained and protected. But if not, maintenance absolutely is something that I run across constantly, where whether it's tile or stone, that these kind of pictures, and I hate to show these kind of pictures because this is costing somebody a lot of money and a lot of heartache and a lot of problems, and there's a lot of liability associated with it, and nobody ever wants to put these pictures on a website and say, hey, that was our company, or we did that to this floor, or we were associated with this job. So again, that's why I appreciate everybody being part of this today, because the more we can all work together as a team and as an industry, this job should look fantastic. There's no reason that this floor should look like this, short of, again, lack of understanding of proper maintenance. Now, the next picture you see here is a porcelain tile. This is a glazed porcelain, nice material, great job. It was at a hotel. And what you see as far as what might look like and what a lot of customers might call water spots on the tile is actually etching. This is caused by, actually, we found out the disinfectant cleaner that they were also doubling as a toilet bowl cleaner in these restrooms in the hotel. And when they would spill this randomly by accident across the porcelain, the brand new porcelain tile floor, it literally would etch, and it took no more than 2 minutes of dwell time to create this reaction on this glazed porcelain tile. That's how strong that cleaner was. Again, was it a good cleaner? Yeah, you bet it was. It was fantastic cleaner. But obviously, when you get it on surrounding materials, it did a lot of damage, not only to the porcelain but to other surfaces. It was that aggressive. So again, not a good idea, not a good solution for them. There are other cleaners that can be used that are designed obviously for tile and stone that would do the same purpose, but just without the harsh, aggressive results that you see here. And so one of the things, again, I've said before and I will repeat constantly is, again, with the right product, process, and equipment, again, we can keep these installations, whether it's tile or stone, looking the way they were when they were installed. These are not hard surfaces to maintain. They're very easy. But it does require knowledge of the material itself, the usage that it will be exposed to, and understanding what equipment and process is needed to do that. In the top pictures you'll see here, this is a convenience store. And what you'll see there is typically again, a dirty tile, which is not unusual, especially when parking lots are repaved and various things. People are walking in dirt, and again, a very common application. Again, the tile's not hard to clean, but it has a texture to it, obviously for the COF, slip-resistant qualities there. But the idea that only using a mop, and typically, again, an old mop, mops need to be changed out frequently. When the mop is dirty, it's kind of like a Swiffer or anything else. When your vacuum gets full, that chamber and cartridge gets full of dirt and things in there, you empty it, you dump it out, and clean it out. The same thing here. We cannot keep using the wrong mop, using the same mop for years and expect it to be, something that's clean. So again, not hard to do, but mopping in and of itself is not going to be the only answer. It's much like carpet. Vacuuming your carpet is great, but every now and then you need to hire a carpet cleaning service or do it yourself to steam clean or deep clean your carpets. It's no different than with tile or stone. Occasionally, again, just mopping itself is not going to cut it. And what you see over here is, again, just a commercial extraction device there for this. Again, very quick and easy, and it's with the right product, the right process, which you see, and equipment. It's not hard to get this right back to what you see in the picture on the right here. Again, a very clean, very nice floor. So again, it's a matter of using the right process, product, and equipment. Down here, you'll see a commercial application, a clothing store here where, again, simply this was a combination of the wrong product, the wrong process and equipment. they were not using any of three. They were not employing any of those, which you see here, the floor looks pretty bad. Interesting enough, these white pieces here are the polished porcelain. This is all unglazed porcelain. The dark tiles are the unglazed, unpolished, and these are the unglazed, polished pieces here that actually still look pretty decent. But by using the right equipment here, a walk behind, auto scrubber, which had the right down pressure, the right brushes on it in pads, making sure that the squeegee itself was also in good shape. That's something I see a lot of is, bad squeegees that aren't making good contact, or they're simply worn out and not picking up the dirty solution. So again, it's a matter of just, simple, easy things to employ. But when that's done, you can get back here to what the floor should look like. This is not defective tile. It's not a defective installation at all. And it's not hard to do. It's just when, again, not using the right product, process, and equipment, it's very easy to go from this to this. But it's not very hard to go back from this right back to where it should be. And as I said before, again, the right process, product, and equipment. When you look at whether it's tile installations, stone on the right there, this is what these floors should look like when not only after they're installed for a beauty shot, but I'm fortunate enough to see a lot of great installations. The picture on the right there is a hotel in Southern California. This one here, it's a marble floor. And it's looked like that for years and years, and it looks fantastic because they understand and are employing the right process, product, and equipment. And that's exactly how it should look. Like I said, this is not a beauty shot after it was installed. This is after years of use, and it looks fantastic. They understand what we're talking about today, and when it's properly employed, it's exactly what it does look like years later. Now, pre-grouting sealing. So for installations for tile or stone, there are certain applications where we might want to pre-seal a stone or a tile to protect it from the grout itself, either pigment staining or to simply or really to make the grout cleanup quicker and easier. And really, if you're an installer, that's really what everybody wants to do. I mean, nobody wants to be on their hands and knees longer than possible if you're the guy grouting the floor. So we want to make that easier and quicker to do, and for certain stone and tile, like I said, it simply is a matter of pre-sealing the material with the intended sealer, whether that's a natural look penetrating sealer, whether it's a color enhancing sealer, whether it's a topical sealer. What I would suggest doing is use the same sealer that is to be used post-grouting, use that before grouting as your pre-grouting sealer. It's simply better, for a variety of reasons, for not only consistency of look, but performance, to not mix and match different products, but stay with the same product that's recommended, specified, or that the customer has decided to use. So again, whether it's a natural look, an enhancer, or a topical sealer, use that before grouting. Picture down here is, again, an unglazed porcelain where this side was pre-sealed. This side is not. I'm sorry, let me get the arrow. There we go. The left side here has been pre-sealed here, and the right side is what happens if this tile were to be installed with a certain gray grout, and what happens to the change in color with that grout. Again, a lot of people may not pick that up afterwards, but if somebody were to install 3,000 feet of this at a dealership, grout it with this gray grout, have it turn out like this, and then the owner or somebody, the GC or the architect, comes back and puts down the uninstalled piece that was meant to look like this, somebody would have a serious problem on their hands. So again, the idea of pre-sealing, which is what was done here, can dramatically help not only avoid grout pigment staining, which is what you see here, but again, just simply make that grout cleanup quicker and easier, which is what everybody would, wants to do. And again, picture here just shows, again, what that looks like closer up on natural stone. When you pre-seal it, it helps to keep that pigment from getting locked into this limestone tile here. This is what happens if we would not pre-seal a piece of limestone. This is under a jeweler's loupe. You can see the difference in color. And that's what the pre-sealer does help us do, is it doesn't stop the grout from sticking, by the way, which is one of the common questions I get. The idea of pre-sealing the material is not to stop the grout from sticking. It is intended to stop the absorption of the grout pigment, color, and moisture to make the grout clean up again quicker and easier. But it is not a bond breaker. It is not there to stop the grout from being cleaned up, other than what the manufacturer says. Again, the grout should be installed exactly the way the manufacturer recommends, whether it's pre-sealed or not. That does not change the instructions. So again, this picture here just shows the microscopic pores that, again, the grout, and this is a porcelain tile here. Again, you can see the pores where, again, it's not a matter of absorption. It's really a matter of the grout getting locked into these little pits and valleys and pores into the tile there, where it just makes it that much harder to clean off. And pre-sealing can help us do that. And so we often, again, go back and ask the question, again, we want to know, what does the manufacturer recommend? Have we done a mock-up? Do we know if this is going to be an issue? So very important things to understand and ask and know before you do install it. Specify, again, whatever your role is, whether you sell the material. Pictures here show, again, what happens if we just roll the dice and don't understand what this topic, what we're talking about right now, what it can lead to. And what you see on the left side with the slate tiles, again, are the white picture framing, what looks like a white picture framing. That's actually the natural color of the slate. Simply put, here on both pictures, whether it's the granite on the right or the slate on the left, these are both jobs in which a color enhancer was ultimately used to bring out color in these installations, which is fine. What the parties involved in this job did not understand is that when a polymer modified grout is used, which is very common in the industry with the cement-based grouts, those polymers can wick into the sides of the stone itself. When the moisture evaporates, the moisture is not the issue, but the polymer that it may have pulled into the sides of these pieces of stone are an issue. In essence, what that has done is it's sealed the edge of the stones. So when the enhancer is applied, the enhancer only absorbs into the areas that it can absorb into. And in essence, again, we have a natural-looking piece of granite or slate around the edges. That's what it looked like before. And the enhancer will not absorb into something that, in essence, is sealed with the polymer from the grout. So when you see this, unfortunately, this is a rip out and replace every time you see it. And both of these jobs were thousands of square feet. Very costly, very unfortunate, but there is nothing that can be done to rectify this type of situation here. Because it's not just on the surface, it's through the entire edge of the stone, the entire way top to bottom. You cannot strip that. You cannot use honing powders or anything else, because, again, this is something that's penetrated the entire depth of the stone from top to bottom. So these are very unfortunate. I would love to see less of these. That's why I'm doing this today. That's why I appreciate you guys, again, being on this call. These are the things that we want to prevent. These are very easily preventable. But again, with the right information and understanding, something that we can definitely do, again, quite easily. So when we do pre-seal, unfortunately here, like I said, details make the difference. Very unfortunate, but again, this is what happens if we maybe don't understand the full impact. This is a limestone floor here on the left, and you can kind of see around the edges of the stone here. This person here said, hey, we understand what you're saying, and, we're going to go ahead and we're going to seal the edges there so that that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, they used a natural look penetrating sealer to seal the edges. They just took a foam brush and brushed these edges, not understanding that, I guess if the grout was going to be installed with a margin float, that would have been fine. But the job was actually spread grout, meaning over the entire face of the stone. And so the sealer did its job by not allowing any pigment stain or anything around the edges, but obviously the grout itself did stain the stone. So this is kind of a, again, just a lack of the full understanding of what I just said a minute ago. If it's going to be sealed, especially spread grout over everything, you're just best off sealing the entire installation, not just the edges of the stone. You seal the entire stone with the sealer that's intended to be used. The job on the right is another limestone job, obviously exterior, multiple thousands of feet of installation here, and sealed with a natural look penetrating sealer, which came out great except for this line right up the middle. So what is that? Well, we had two guys doing the job here where this guy stopped at this row. When he rolled the sealer on, you kind of see the roll marks. They rolled right up to this line, and this guy rolled up to here, and each one of them thought that there was a row of sealer, that they were one row further over than they were. So obviously they only got up to the edge of each one of these, and then the job was grouted with a modified epoxy grout, and that modified epoxy grout actually obviously just stained the limestone. So that was a rip out and replace that entire row of stone. Not the end of the world, but again, obviously not in somebody's budget, and lost profitability there and time as well. So it's very important. Again, this is very easy to do, but like I said, the details make the difference. So again, just wanted to show you a few things there that, again, the idea of pre-sealing is great, but it has to be done properly. And again, something as simple as just knowing to make sure to communicate, and what I would tell you on the picture on the right is to make sure that the, using something like a tape or a marker, something like that is very easy, a cone, anything simple is easy to do, to say this is where I'm going to, this is where you're going to. There are simple, easy things to make sure that that doesn't happen, like I said, because as simple as that is, that costs a lot of money and time to rip that out and replace that entire row of stone. So here, pre-grouting sealing. Picture on the left there, again, some more stone where the grout itself actually, the color bled into the edge of the limestone and did more staining. Again, this is what happened if no mock-up was done, did not understand that would happen or that could even happen, and unfortunately the job was installed and they thought it was just moisture, but it was not just moisture. It turned out the pigment bled into this particular stone. Natural stone is great. I love natural stone, but it is natural stone. Stones don't all react the same. Very important to understand how to do, how to treat each one and to do a mock-up to make sure you're safe. Picture on the right, again, is what happens when what we've just talked about is implemented. This is a job where it was pre-sealed with the intended high-performance natural look sealer. It was pre-sealed and specified in the specs there to be done, and everything went exactly according to plan. It was installed, grouted, and you can see there everything came out great. Everybody was happy. Everybody got paid, and it was a very successful installation. The owner loved it. Again, no issues, no problems, no big stories to tell. That's what I love to see. That's what I love. Again, that's what I love to hear everybody involved with, are those successful jobs. I don't want any more of these jobs again, like I'm showing you here. Sealer residue removal. Again, unfortunate, but it does happen. Picture on the left is a commercial building where they actually were trying to pop the color and use a color enhancer on the absolute black. Did bring out some color in this particular absolute black, but they did not understand that the sealer, whatever sealer did not absorb, needed to be wiped completely dry. They just kind of wiped the excess and assumed it was going to flash off. They also did not use the right towels, and they did not use enough towels, as evidenced by the picture. So again, that in the picture on the right is a porcelain tile remodel at a hospital. And they did not also understand that the sealer needed to be wiped off. Now, in the picture on the right there, at a hospital remodel, you have to be careful because that was, in fact, a job where, the question said, well, can we just reuse the sealer and re-emulsify? And on that particular sealer, you could re-emulsify. But at the same time, it's quite expensive and costly to do that when there are non-abrasive or mildly abrasive cleaning creams that can be used to remove the residue without removing the sealer. A lot of times people will use a stripper on there to get that off, and that's fine, except then you have to go back and reseal, and hopefully the directions are followed the second time. with these cleaning creams that are mildly abrasive, they will work to remove the residue of the sealer without chemically stripping the sealer from the tile, the grout, or the stone. And they're safe enough that they can be used even on polished marble or glass tile without scratching them. So again, a nice alternative, because as they're water-based, they do not have fumes and odors you have to contend with. They're very safe, no VOC issues. So again, just a nice alternative to problem solve without having to spend additional cost on extra sealer and time and energy to redo the entire process. There are solutions like that available out there if you do run into this kind of problem. Grout haze prevention, using a grout release. So on cases like this, a grout release, and in this case we're talking not so much about a sealer. This is a different process in which the tile itself is not really porous, but it does have micro texture to it, again, primarily for look and slip resistant quality. And again, if you're the guy on the left there installing the grout with the dark grout on the light tile, you want to make sure that obviously the pigment isn't left in the micro pores of the tile, but also you want to be able to get on and off of there without a lot of difficulty. Using a grout release, which is typically a film forming detergent or soap on there, very quick and easy to do. You roll it on, let it sit for about 20 to 30 minutes. When it's dry to the touch, you go ahead and grout, and it just makes the installer's job that much quicker and easier to grout the installation without worrying about pigment staining, without worrying about grout getting stuck in those micro pores. And then obviously the tendency is to overwash and use more water and scrub it hard, which leads to dished and cup joints and potentially having to go back and recap joints, dealing with issues like grout pigment bleeding of color and loss of color, things of that nature. So again, these are things that grout release can help avoid. And again, it makes the tendency to overwash less, you grout quicker, and you do less rinses. And time is money in these cases. So grout release actually can end up saving the installer a lot of time and money versus not using it. Again, another picture here. On the left, you will see a textured porcelain, and what you see there is what happens when the cement grout gets locked into all the textures of the stone-looking, this kind of slate-looking porcelain. By the way, what's happened to the color of the grout is just what I said a minute ago. Not only was it not easy to get all the grout out of the texture of the tile, but what happened is this is not actually meant to be the color of the grout. There's so many rinses and so much water done on this to try to get the grout out of the texture, the clefting of this tile, that the grout's obviously turned white. The pigment has just been bleached and washed out of the grout joint there. So obviously not a good option and not a good idea there. And the picture on the right here just shows a magnified image of what some porcelain tiles do look like here. And you can see it almost looks like Velcro. This, again, is a great texture for slip fall. It's not necessarily a great texture if you're the installer. But having said that, that's where a grout release is really the bridge to span that issue. How do you deal with that? Simple, grout release. Grout releases also, again, are much cheaper than the average sealer is. And again, within 20 to 30 minutes, you're grouting. And like I said, it is such a great installation aid for the installer that it ultimately will find out, if people run the math, you will save money and time by doing that, produce a better result, and end up getting paid and not having to go back and try to find the money, time, and energy to resolve the issue. So this is a problem preventer. So with pictures like this here, these are just jobs where, again, everything's done right. Job comes, whether it's tile, whether it's quarry tile, porcelain tile to car dealership, natural stone, slate with a color enhancer, or this auto dealership in the service bay. Again, these are jobs, simply put, where the job just went right. And that's exactly what can and should happen on a lot more jobs out there. This is not hard to do, but it does require the knowledge and education we're talking about today to understand. Now, when we look at problem solve, what to know, very simple here. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of chemistry, but it's very simple and easy to understand, and this is the most scientific thing I will tell you guys, but it's very easy to understand. And that is that when we're dealing with problems, when we're trying to problem solve an issue, there are three families of products that you would look to, and that's either to use an alkaline, an acid, or a solvent to resolve most problems that you run across, and that's short of the cleaning cream that I mentioned earlier. So, but when we're looking to something chemically, when that is the fix and the solution, it's either going to be an alkaline, an acid, or a solvent. So what do those do? Alkaline cleaners simply do three things. There's only three things you would use an alkaline cleaner for, and that's degreasing, breaking down oils. If we're trying to clean a neglected installation like you see in the pictures there, or stripping of wax and finish. And notice I don't say sealers, it's waxes and finishes, okay? That's it. Those are the three things you would ever use an alkaline cleaner for. That's what they're good at. And typically you'll see them used for the picture, what I show in the pictures there. The picture on the left is a limestone pool deck. The nice thing about that, I will mention as a side note, is that job was sealed. And notice the sealer did not stop the limestone from getting dirty, which is some customers' expectation. You know, by the way, Scotchgard does not stop carpet from getting dirty either, but it stops staining, and that's what this exactly is meant to do here. The picture on the right is what happens when an alkaline cleaner was used with some scrub brushes and a little bit of dwell time by hand. That limestone pool deck came back to the exact perfect state. Did not have to hire a restoration company to the tune of about $10,000. It was done with a few $100s and a few hours of scrubbing by hand. And that, for that owner, a couple $100 in a few hours versus about a $10,000 bill, if I were the owner, I would be pretty thrilled, and they were happy with that. But again, the sealer did not stop it from getting dirty, but the sealer did stop all of that stuff and those contaminants from getting into the stone. It kept all of that on the stone so that it could be cleaned off with the appropriate chemical. Now, again, just some pictures quickly to show you again, this is what we're talking about. Ceramic tile, neglected, dirty, we use an alkaline cleaner. We're just trying to clean neglected, heavy-duty cleaning. That's what an alkaline's for, and you can see here, exactly the right prescription, the right solution. Flame granite, same thing. When we get a lot of buildup of contaminants here, using the alkaline cleaner, that's exactly what it gets us right back to, the right result. We know we're using the right product when you get this type of result. Okay? Now, let me go back here. Okay, so for Grout Haze solutions, non-cement grout haze. So these are very popular today, obviously, are the single component grouts, the urethane grouts, basically the pre-mixed grouts there that are very popular out there. They're fantastic materials. Again, very easy to use if you're following the instructions out there. But for this type of tile, this is an unglazed porcelain tile that, again, has a texture very similar to what I showed you a few slides ago, where you almost have kind of a loophole or Velcro type texture. This is done by a great installer, but unfortunately here, you know, as good of an installer as he is, you know, the grout gets into those micro pores there, and without using a grout release, this is what can happen. So a grout release would have been a good way to prevent this, but so how do we deal with this, and how do we remove the single component grout haze on here, on the pre-mixed grout? And that's with a non-cement grout haze remover. And there are products out there that are designed to be used for these new grouts out there should a problem occur. Again, ideally, if the instructions are followed and we use a grout release or something, this would never happen. But if it does, again, know that there are products out there that are designed to be used. These are not acid-based products, by the way. We do not want to just grab a bottle of acid and go, well, it's a grout haze, let's just start using acid. Acid is not the solution. We'll talk about that in a second. These are different chemistry. They are typically alkaline-based products. So again, they are available out there should a problem occur. Hopefully it does not. But again, the solution is out there. Acidic cleaners. So what do acids do? Again, acids are it's what a go-to for a lot of guys out there. You know, a lot of guys just like to grab acid and think it's going to burn everything off. That's simply not the case. Acids only work on mineral-based contaminants. What are those? That's the four things you see in the slide. It's rust, efflorescence, cement grout haze, and hard water and mineral buildup. Those are all mineral-based problems, as you can see by the pictures as well up there. Picture on the top right, you see kind of that fizzing and bubbling. That's a good way to know if it's actually the right product. That's actually kind of a calcified mineral deposit on a porcelain tile. And when the acid was placed on there, just a test to verify that, you can see that bubbling or fizzing. That's how we know we're on the right track. These acids are great. They come in a variety of strengths and different product formulas out there. But again, they do not strip sealers. They do not degrease. Those are not mineral-based issues. They are designed to be used for these four things primarily. That's what you would use or sell them for or recommend them for, whatever your job might be in the industry. And that is it. Only mineral-based, only these four issues. Pictures here, you can just see, again, porcelain tile installation where some grout haze was left on this wall. And on the picture on the right, you can see a section of that cleaned in the middle there with the appropriate acid-based cement grout haze remover. Again, designed to do the job without damaging the grout, without harming the tile itself. Again, I said there's different type of acids. You want to use an appropriate one. Obviously not hydrochloric or hydrofluoric base that could be damaging to either the grout or the tile itself. Problem solved, what to know. Solvent-based strippers. So lastly, let's talk about solvents. What do solvents do? They typically break down resinous-based materials like epoxy grout residue. Epoxy is a resin. Glues or adhesives, those are resin-based materials. Sealers, not all, but most sealers are resin-based of some material. There are some exceptions to that. But again, for most sealers, they will dissolve that and break those down. And then inks and dyes, things with color in it. It's great to remove that. So those are what solvent-based strippers do. Now, you do have to be careful. Most solvent strippers do have fumes and odors. Most of them out there within our industry are non-flammable, but it's something you want to look at. Are they non-flammable? What kind of odor do they have? Taping off, masking other materials. You have to be careful with these on a variety of levels, but you want to know what product the safety precautions are. But they can be great at what they do when you do need them. But these are the only four things typically you would use a solvent stripper for that we would run across out there. So if you find out what the problem is, if we know what the problem is, drop it in one of these three categories, acid, alkaline, and solvent. We can use, recommend, or specify the right product the first time. It's unfortunate when a problem occurs, but it's even more unfortunate when chemical Russian roulette is played and people start grabbing bottles, and typically, like I said, acid is always the first go-to to think that acids do everything. They do not. And so rather than waste time or compound the problem, if we can put the problem in one of these three families and then use and sell whatever, recommend whatever your job is, the right product for the right solution, this is a big helper for you out there, and it will help resolve the issue without further problem. Efflorescence or not. Only one of these is true efflorescence. The picture on the left, what a lot of times you see is might be diagnosed as efflorescence. That is not efflorescence. That is grout wash water. That's simply what happens when the grout water itself during cleanup is not changed out frequently enough. And when you see a bucket of gray grout water and it's constantly being used and reused to try to wipe the grout haze off, that's hard to do without thinking that the water that is contained in the sponge is not of a light gray nature to some degree itself. So this is what happens when you try to take it off the tile, but you end up leaving that residue a little bit in the channels of the grout. And again, a lot of times people say, well, that's efflorescence. That is not efflorescence. That is grout. You might as well say, again, it's grout wash water, basically grout haze residue left in the joints just from not doing a good, thorough, proper grout cleanup process. So that can be resolved by using an acid wash there to bring the color back. actually. It's how it's done, again, just as if it was a grout haze on the tile, an acid wash can be used. Picture in the middle, what looks like efflorescence is kind of a white powdery substance there, it looks like, on the surface, but it actually is not. When you take your finger and you take some off, like you see in the picture in the middle there, the way to tell that that's not efflorescence is two ways. One is you basically press that between your thumb and your index finger. And in that picture, what was evident was that it was tacky and gummy. Efflorescence is a salt. Salts are not tacky and gummy, but latex leaching is. And that's what that picture shows. That is latex leaching that is coming up. It was also easy to tell because they continued to acid wash that installation thinking it was efflorescence, and they said, hey, this is not working. And as I said before, if it was efflorescence, that could work. Latex is not a mineral. It is a resin. In this case, it was a mild solvent wash, actually, that was used to break that down and to remove that off the surface. Solvents break down resins, as I said a minute ago. That actually resolved the issue there. So again, latex leaching, the other way you can tell that is, by the way, is if you get a cup of vinegar, and if you put that residue in the cup of vinegar, it just floats. Remember I said before, if it is a mineral, it will fizz and bubble. When I put this into the vinegar, it just floated and did nothing, which again was another easy way to diagnose that it was not efflorescence, which again told us that with the customer. Now, picture on the right is efflorescence. When you brush that off and you rub it between your fingers, it's very evident to tell it feels like baby powder, and that's what real efflorescence is. It is a salt. And there are efflorescence, not only cleaners, but inhibitors out there that can help inhibit the future reoccurrence of efflorescence. And that's an option to go to. Otherwise, in certain cases, an acid wash can be done on certain installations. It may continue to reoccur to some degree, and that's that could be an hour-long conversation in and of itself. But there are ways to not only clean efflorescence, but really also help inhibit that needs to be looked at. But those are options. But again, it's one of the most common misdiagnosed issues I run across, so I just wanted to throw that in just for general purpose of discussion. And lastly, as we're getting to the end here, when it all goes right. This is a mall job here. It's a fantastic job with about 170,000 feet of Egyptian limestone. That was finished in December of 2007. It was installed great by a great company. And it was sealed by a great company there that knew what they were doing, sealed with a high premium natural look sealer. Everything was done right and it looked great. What I love about this is you're looking at the job 9 years later, and there are no stains in that floor. Not only are there no stains in the floor, but when it comes to the maintenance of this, why does it look so good in the picture on the right, 2016? It's hard to tell which one it doesn't look any different. Not only are there no stains, but the floor itself looks fantastic. It's clean. Minus a little bit of surface wear and tear to that limestone, the job looks awesome. It looks amazing. And so a lot of people go, well, how can a natural stone installation with that kind of traffic and wear and tear look that good? Again, like I said, all the elements up front were key, but really what's helped keep it looking good is what we're just talked about, the right maintenance, the right product, process, and equipment. And they worked with the right people to help instruct them on those three elements. And by implementing those three elements, process, product, and equipment, that stone floor looks as good as any, and in some cases better than a lot of porcelain tiles. And not to knock porcelain, a lot of people would not believe that a natural stone floor could look as good or better than a porcelain floor. And it is possible. Whether it's tile or stone, these are great materials. These are low maintenance materials. That mall is not hard to keep clean, whether it's tile or stone. Malls are not hard to keep clean if we use the right process, product, and equipment. So again, it is possible, and it's not hard or more costly to do. Use your resources. Lastly, as we're getting to the end here, like we're doing today here, there are various reps you can talk to out in the field, manufacturers, associations, obviously like the NTCA. You see a picture of the NTCA reference manual. I told you that you couldn't find any information in the TCNA handbook or ANSI. And as unfortunate as it is, what I will tell you is you can find information on what we're talking about in the NTCA reference manual. Hopefully everybody on this call is a member of the NTCA. If you're not, I would encourage you to be a member of the NTCA. This is a great organization that provides resources like we're doing today to help the industry grow, to help people be more profitable, more successful, and to do the job once and to get repeat business out there. As I said, tile and stone are fantastic materials. They're amazing. And they are not hard to work with. They are not hard to maintain. And hopefully with some of the information we talked about today, and if you partner with the right people, use the right resources, again, like education like we're doing today, whether it's hands-on, whether it's classroom, whether it's at a trade show, whether it's an NTCA road show out there, there are so many opportunities to get the information that you need to be successful, that your customers need to have out there to help them have successful installations. It's just a matter of networking and partnering with the right people and the right organizations like we're doing here today. Knowledge equals success. Again, profitability and satisfaction. These are jobs, again, like I said, that you look at that aren't just beauty shops. These are jobs that are in service. And there's no reason that these jobs, shouldn't look like this a year, 5 years, 10 years later. They can and they do. But it's because of what we've talked about today, implementing the right program. And as I say here, let your work be a showcase, not a case study. I hate showing all the negative stuff. I hate showing the problem pictures and, the failures out there. But I love showing this. And this is what happens, and these are the installations you look at and go, wow, that's beautiful. It's not only beautiful, but it's very functional. These are very practical installations. And like I said, they're not hard to work with, they're not hard to install, and they're not hard to maintain long-term if we implement the programs, the product, and the knowledge that we've talked about today. With that, I'm going to wrap this up here and turn it back to Jim for any questions and chat there that we may want to have.
Great job, Rod. I'm certain our audience appreciates your expertise and knowledge of this topic. Extremely informative. We do have a few questions, and I think I'm going to go back a couple slides here to, I think it was about here. So the first question was, what about sealers that recommend being applied within minutes of the initial install?
Sealers to be applied within minutes of installing it?
Yeah, they're recommended to be applied within minutes.
Of grouting or before grouting?
Yeah, they don't. The question isn't clear.
So what I would say to that is, again, regardless, that not all products are the same. First off, and again, whether it's grouts, thin sets, mortars, sealers, cleaners, there are various nuances and variables that you have to consider. So what I would defer to in general is to say, I would follow the manufacturer's recommendation, and if that's what they're recommending, then I would stay with that. Again, and going back to the resource comment, if you're using a product for the first time, talk to your, regional tech reps out there. Work with your territory managers and work with the company and the products out there, because you have those resources available. Technical services, most companies have a technical service number there at the very least you can call and talk to for tips, tricks, and ideas to be helpful. So I would always defer to the manufacturer, but, don't feel like you're just left out there on your own and go, well, I guess I'll just figure it out. A good company will work with you, whether it's on the field and or on the phone, to say, hey, let's walk through it together, make sure it's being done right. But if that's what the manufacturer recommends, then I would follow what they're saying. But, again, always feel like you can reach out, talk to, and partner with the company and the products you're using, because that's what the case should be.
I think the question was directed at pre-sealing, probably before grouting.
So pre-sealing, before grouting. Sealers will set up differently, whether they're water-based or solvent-based. The environment, whether it's a climatized application or installation or not, if it's, is it brand new, is this a remodel, Is it summer, winter? Like I said, is the AC or the heat on? I mean, these things, is it humid out? These things all play a factor, right, in terms of how a sealer, any sealer, sets up to some degree or other. So, again, talking to the manufacturer, in a lot of cases, you may want to wait an hour to 2 hours before grouting. That's not an unusual timeline. Could it be quicker than that? Yes. Could it take longer than that? Absolutely. What I would suggest, what I would tell anybody, especially with natural stone, really more so, is I'm a big fan of sealing it before you set it. And in the picture in the slide that you have on there, Jim, you see the picture of the flag slate up there. That's where the color enhancer is being applied. And if you notice in that picture, there's no grout. But what I would point out is that's also dry laid. That is not installed. That flag slate is not installed. It's actually being sealed on site before it's set. Why? Because the stone is never drier in that condition. The sealer has the best chance of absorbing into that material before it's ever set. Once it's set, that moisture from the mortar, the mud bed, whatever it is coming up through the stone. It gets to be a little more challenging in those cases when you're talking about, well, how long does the sealer take to set up? It's going to be a little more challenging. It's not impossible, but it gets to be a little more challenging when you set it, then seal it, versus seal it, then set it. Now, again, understanding that that's not always possible, yes, there's variables that play into that. But what I would tell you is when it's sealed and then set, I can't think of an issue in the last 28 years where I've seen a problem with that, but I can think of a lot of them in the reverse, just because of job site variables and, Mother Nature, so to speak.
Great. So one of our attendees has a marble job coming up, and they're ready to do a mock-up. And they, I'm going to name brand here. I'm sorry. They want to use a Sealer's Choice Gold and then Prism Grout. And
okay.
Will those work together, I think, is what they're asking, or should they be using an unsanded poly blend?
So with that, and it's a polished marble, you said?
And it doesn't say if it's polished or not.
So with that grout, Prism Grout is a great grout, and Sealer's Choice Gold is fine to pre-seal and use that. As far as the grout goes there, it does still have sand in it. The thing with marble is not all marbles are equal. This is, marble is not porcelain tile. Porcelain tile is, by relative nature, is very easy to work with because it has certain working properties that are fairly uniform and standard. Realize that a lot of marbles that we call marble geologically are not marble. And that is important to note when you're talking about how it's going to function. So if you're talking about a true marble like Carrara or some of the other marbles along that line, you probably wouldn't have a problem because it is a much harder material. But if you're talking about other,
that it's polished, Rod.
It is polished?
Yes.
So depending on what marble it is, for instance, if you're doing Negromarquina is not a marble, geologically speaking. It's a high-density limestone. Why is that important? Because it's not marble, and the hardness of Negromarquina as a high-density limestone is not the same as white Carrara, which is a true marble. And so the propensity to scratch the marble is going to be different. So that's where, again, mock-ups, testing, talking to the manufacturer, in partnering together is going to be critical to work with to make sure it is at the right grout to use. We need to know that. But that's where marble, like I said, is great material, but it can be challenging because a lot of what we geologically sell as marble is not. It's just not. So, it's not the end of the world, but it's something to be aware of when you're dealing in the natural stone realm.
So the product is white Carrara, I'm being told.
So white Carrara. So again, in that case, you have a pretty good chance of it not having an issue. But with that as well, I would tell you the other follow-up to that is there are different grades of any stone. Whether it's Dathos, white Carrara, pick any stone. Granite, there are different grades of that. That means it will have different not only aesthetic looks but physical properties. Travertine as well, as far as the holes, the size of holes, potential for veining. So these are things that all play a factor, but white Carrara is much safer and likely not to have an issue. But again, it's something I would recommend to mock up and test just to be safe there, because not knowing what grade it is, it could be, it may or may not be an issue.
So do you recommend a product for hard water stains on a glass mosaic wall in the shower?
So hard water stains on a glass mosaic. So what I would suggest potentially is two things. One, if it's all glass tile, and assuming it's acid-resistant glass tile, which most are, there's some, again, some exceptions, but you could use a mild acid wash like a sulfamic acid or a mild acid along that line to get the mineral deposits off. As long as, again, we're talking it's all glass, not a combination of glass or stone or something else. There's another way to deal with that. As long as it's not a real heavy hard water buildup, or if it is more of a sensitive glass, you can use the abrasive cleaning cream that I talked about earlier that can be used to remove sealer residue. That is also something that can be used to remove hard water deposits, whether it's on a travertine shower or a polished marble shower or on a glass tile shower, or the glass doors and the anodized metal trim and the faucet fixtures and all that. These cleaning creams are a great alternative to using chemicals. Again, that's if the residue is not heavy and you don't have a real heavy buildup of that. Ideally, if you want to resolve the issue, it's a matter of getting the water treated so that that doesn't occur to begin with. That's the best way to prevent that. But to clean off what's there, those are two options to go with.
Can a solvent cleaner remove grout dyes from polished porcelain tile?
Can a solvent cleaner remove grout dye? Grout pigment staining?
Yeah, pigments.
So in general, yes, as long as it's more at the surface there. If it's been pre-sealed, the likelihood is it's obviously a lot easier. In some cases, it's really not. It just depends on how deep that pigment staining might, have absorbed into the stone or the tile itself. And so in general, chemically, yes, like I said before, dyes, inks, things of that nature, color, that's what you would use as a solvent. But the success of that really does depend on, how deep it's penetrated into the tile, stone, or grout, and or the crystal size and pore structure of the material itself. Some are easier than others to remove, just from the very nature of the size and the structure of the pores themselves.
So here's a question, and I'm kind of prefacing this because we've seen a lot of stone that's in wet areas, and not even necessarily all wet areas, but they're starting to change color. And this question is, when should six-sided sealing be considered? Did I lose you? Rod?
For several reasons. One is where excess wetting of the stone may occur, to prevent that from, again, changing color. It can be used in cases to help minimize and reduce the possibility of mineral staining like you might see in Carrara in a shower. And it can be used for issues of minimizing and eliminating efflorescence issues in some cases. So six-sided sealing is something that's done very commonly in Europe. It's done very commonly in Australia, New Zealand, in Asia, in the Middle East. It's just not very commonly done here in North America. We're actually one of the last, continents here to really embrace this. It's been done for decades in other countries and, other continents around the world. But having said that, as I said before, through all of this, especially when you're dealing with natural stone, it's unpredictable. So, typically six-sided sealing is something that we see as having, 90% roughly success rate, 9 out of 10 jobs, but there's going to be that 1 in 10 jobs possibly that it just doesn't work for. And that's where, if six-sided sealing is to be considered, it is best done where a mock-up is being done to verify and vet and validate the success of it so that the client, the customer, the GC, everybody involved, the designer, whoever it is, everyone knows that, you know what, hey, this looks like it is a good option. Because like I said, the six-sided sealing is not a guarantee. It's not the be-all, end-all. It is just a component. It's like sealers or anything else. It's like waterproofing, crack isolation, and anything else. I mean, crack isolation is great unless you have a structural issue, right? Crack isolation just not going to address that. So the same thing with any successful assembly is knowing the components. It's knowing the products, what they do, what they don't do, knowing what options you have. And whether that's a sealer, whether that's a cleaner, a problem solver, or, you know, six-sided sealing in this case, it's something that is an option, but it's not the be-all, end-all, and it doesn't prevent everything. You cannot, for instance, you cannot six-sided seal slate, multicolored slate. Whereas in some cases we see a lot of success with Carrara or certain granites that have inherent soluble iron. You cannot six-sided seal a multicolored slate and stop it from bleeding. That just is not possible. And so that's one of the areas where if somebody was looking at it, just simply, I can promise you it will not do that. But you may have some success with certain marbles and granites. So again, partner with the manufacturer, talk, test, mock up, vet and validate the process, because it can be very successful, but it's not the be-all, end-all of eliminating every problem that might occur in the industry today.
Great, Rod. We have time for one more question.
Okay.
Do you have a solution for removing a topical sealer from a vitreous quarry tile that has created an unsightly stubborn white film on the surface?
So if the sealer, just taking a face value, let's assume, the sealer, which in many cases can turn white for one reason or more, it might be due to moisture. It might be due to the wrong cleaners being used, which again is very common, like I said earlier. Many of these sealers will blush or turn white from one of those two reasons, moisture and or from the maintenance itself. It's really a matter of stripping it off with a solvent sealer and stripper, I should say, a solvent stripper, using the right solvent stripper based on, ideally, if we know what sealer it is, then again, there are different types of solvent strippers. Some sealers are easy to remove if it's a typical water-based acrylic. It's much easier to remove than a urethane sealer, which is, much easier to remove than certain or epoxy-based sealers. So we have to know to some degree what type of stripper or what sealer it is to identify what stripper to use, because not all sealers strip equally well. They just don't. So, it's a matter of testing if we don't know. It really is a matter of doing a test area to determine is this product the right product, what dwell time do we need, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes or more, and then making sure in some cases as well that, we know, do we need a brush or do we need a floor pad? In many cases, I would use a brush over a floor pad just because of not only the tile, but because of the grout itself. A floor pad just is never going to get into the grout. So, and then using the right type of brush. Too stiff of a brush will not produce the right result. The chemical should do the work for you. The brush in most cases should be much softer than most people would realize. It's just the opposite. You don't use an aggressive brush. You use a softer brush. The chemical does the work, not the brush. The brush is there to facilitate the process, not to, enact the process, if you will.
Well, Rod, thank you. Unbelievable information you've given us. I think everyone enjoyed it. I want to thank everyone for attending. Please look forward to our next webinar. An invite will be coming out shortly. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.